Good evening. Welcome to this Salisbury Pride virtual event. Tonight we're talking about mental health during the year 2020. And I will be your moderator and a participant tonight. And I am Katherine Lamb, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And I work in substance abuse rehabilitation at the Salisbury VA. This is not related to my employment. I also serve on the Salisbury Pride Board as well. So this is sponsored by Food Line, this virtual event. Food Line has graciously agreed to sponsor all our virtual events. And I'd like the rest of our panel to introduce themselves as well.
Hi, I am Heather DePalma-Spivey, and I am a board member of Salisbury Pride, and I am here tonight to talk about my anxiety issues and things like that have stemmed from all the events of 2020, especially the pandemic.
And I am Dr. John Hall. I am a board certified clinical health psychologist. I also work for the VA, but again, not here doing VA work. And at the VA, I am the LGBT veteran care coordinator. So the person who makes sure that all the LGBT veterans are getting the care that they need. And I do pain psychology at the Charlotte office right at the moment. So, but have a background in mental health too.
Great. So tonight, as we go through this panel, we'll be asking for audience participation at various times. If you want to chime in and give us your thoughts and your comments or your questions, we'd be glad to entertain those as we go through this. 2020 has brought all sorts of challenges, as we all know. I think it has impacted all of us in some way, shape, or form, and has been challenging between the global pandemic that has altered some of our lifestyles significantly, to the racial reckoning, the racial awakening that's happening in our society, to turbulent election season, to now facing holidays that maybe look different than our holidays have in the past. And all these things impact our mental health, sometimes even if we're not aware of it. So we wanted to have this conversation tonight because we feel like it's an important conversation to have. So why would y'all feel like having this conversation about mental health might be important?
Well, I think particularly this year has been just sort of like a quadruple whammy. We've got a ton of stress that's coming from all the things that you mentioned, and stress we know is already a challenge. Then it's all hitting around the holiday season, which we know is an extra challenging period for most people because we have expectations of how things should be, or maybe we have family who are less supportive than we would care for, or challenges in our family. And then exactly what we would turn to help with those things, like reaching out to the community, going out and doing activities, those kinds of things were stopped from being able to do. And then we've got all the challenges that come with being LGBTQ folks as well on top of that. And so I think when you combine all of those, you really end up with sort of a powder keg, not necessarily something that's going to go terrible, but something we got to be aware of. And we got to really be watching out for each other to make sure that we're keeping a lifeline connected to people.
Yeah. And I read an article that said, we're not programmed to deal with this much stress in this long term, that we're able to handle it in short spurts. But for this long, I mean, we're well in this for almost a year, and that we're not programmed to be able to cope with that very well. And mental health in the LGBTQ community is a more prevalent issue than in the general population as well. So I think it's important to talk about it, especially with our LGBTQ plus communities, and make it acceptable to talk about it. And the more we talk about it, the more we lessen that stigma that can come with mental health concerns.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think that's especially important in 2020.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with all that. And I mean, coming from the standpoint of someone who has never really experienced any type of mental health issues, this has been very strange for me, and has taken, I don't know, a lot of energy, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's very draining to be so stressed and so anxious, almost all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm lucky. I've since about, I don't know, I guess July, I've been talking with a mental health professional, doing virtual appointments, and so that's helped. And I've found a couple of outlets to keep my mind focused somewhere else. But 2020 has just been, it's been, I don't know, a whirlwind.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's going so slowly, but at the same time, it's going really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like this cyclone that you don't know how to jump out of. So I think talking about this is great. I think it's a really good idea. So.
Yeah. So I wanted to throw out a question for our audience, if anybody would like to participate and share how 2020 has impacted your mental health. What has changed for you, or what have you noticed that's been different for you? How has it impacted your mental health? And I think if we all pause for a moment, and admit that in some way it has. So how has it altered or changed your mental health?
While we wait for some answers to come in real quick, I know one, you were mentioning how we actually do pretty good with short stressors, but long stressors get to be a whole lot harder. And the way I think about that sometimes is it's like holding a beach ball underwater. You can hold a beach ball underwater for a little while, but it's hard to do much else. And if you got to do that for any period of time, you end up kind of exhausted. And I think a lot of us are just sort of reaching that point of being emotionally exhausted and physically exhausted. And now, the stress hasn't stopped. So, yeah, I think that's great that we're bringing that up.
Yeah. I see one comment from the audience that it's made their blood pressure go up dealing with COVID. I would expect that a lot of people could say the same, that their blood pressure has gone up.
Yeah. And as a health psychologist, I can say, a lot of physical things that we don't necessarily think about actually do respond. So a lot of us are finding that our weight's going up when we don't necessarily want it to, partially because we're stuck in the house and close to the kitchen too long, but also partially because all that stress being in our bodies for that long gets cortisol going and all kinds of things that are going to make it harder. Diabetes gets harder to manage. So those of us who are dealing with any sort of chronic health issue, now is definitely a time to stay connected to your doctor and to the people that you trust around your health.
Yeah, and you couldn't go to the gym, which may have been a coping skill for a lot of people to go exercise. And that was closed pretty early on. I mean, they're reopened now, but like for me, I'm not comfortable going back into a gym environment. So one way that people had to cope with this was taken away pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And let's see, we have some more comments. People, it's made them reluctant to go to their regular doctor's appointments. I think that's a pretty common concern. People don't want to go out and get exposed in a doctor's office.
Yeah.
The additional stress of employment. A lot of people have been faced with tough employment, been laid off, fired, lost their jobs, had to close their businesses. Significant stress. People are nervous about being in large groups and don't want to breathe when they pass people at work. Yes. The art of holding one's breath.
Yeah. Especially when you sometimes don't even realize you're doing it.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden you're kind of gasping because you've been holding your breath for so long. That happened to me the first time that I had to take one of our dogs to the vet early on in the pandemic. And this was before I realized this is when I started to realize that I was really having some issues. And I was sitting in the car, waiting for the tech to come out. He came out, we both had masks on. And when they came out and checked me in, we were really far apart. But when he came out to get my dog, we were closer, and I was having to show him something on her. And I realized that I couldn't breathe. I was breathing like I had just, run up and down the stairs 10 times. And I was thinking, while I was trying to talk to him, I was thinking, why can't I breathe? Why can't I breathe? And then when he walked away, it was like I kind of gasped for a minute, and then all of a sudden I could breathe fine. And I realized it was because maybe, well, at the time I wasn't really sure that was my first panic attack. And there've been more since then, but it's just, holding your breath, not being able to breathe.
Mm-hmm. And for me, going into the grocery store has been one of the most anxiety producing experiences, because you can't control what other people are doing. And there's plenty of people without masks on, and it seems like they want to invade your personal space when they don't. Even if they're not, you feel more crowded by the folks who don't have their mask on. And it's gotten to the point right now, in order for me to cope with that, I'm using the food line to go, so I don't have to go into the store. But I've noticed that, and I work in a hospital, but for me, the most anxiety producing was going to the grocery store.
Yep.
And somebody said you have to make sure you're going down the aisle in the correct direction at the grocery store. I think most people are ignoring those signs now. But
well, I am the person who lets people know that there are directional signs. Because I'm me. But I very rarely go to the grocery store. My wife does our grocery shopping, so I'm very lucky in that regard. But every once in a while, I end up having to go for some reason or another, and it's very hard for me. But when people, especially in the beginning, I don't do it as much now because it seems like everybody's just ignoring it. But early on, I was telling people, that you're supposed to go this way, and I was trying to be helpful. I think most people took it as helpful.
Well, I think one of the things that maybe makes this harder for members of the LGBTQ community is we have always been aware of the fact that other people are a threat, with the rates of bashing and those kinds of things that are still really significantly high. I mean, the numbers are trans family members, my goodness, the rates of assault and various negative things are so high that we've been aware of the fact that other people can be a threat. And now everybody's starting to see everybody else as kind of a threat, right? Because you go to the grocery store and somebody's coming the wrong way up the aisle. And that doesn't just mean this person isn't paying attention. That means this person doesn't care about my health. They don't care. Wow, it just really kind of amplifies for us. And I think the ways that we would normally deal with that, right? Hanging out with friends, being able to get together, being in safe community, we may have a really hard time doing right now. And finding the ways to do it virtually like this, which I thank y'all so much for doing, I think is really amazing, and helping people to kind of realize I'm not alone in dealing with some of this.
Yeah, it does help to know that other people we're all dealing with the same issues to certain degrees.
Sure.
Everybody's feeling it at least a little bit, and some people are feeling it, enormously.
Right.
So.
And when they started off this pandemic saying we're all in this together, we really are all in this together. We may be handling it differently, but we're all in this together. And I know for me, the first few months that this was going on, it was like I was obsessed with the news. And it's like as soon as I got home from work, I had to turn on the news. I had to know what was going on. And I noticed after several months, my anxiety and some depression kicking in, and I was lashing out at people, and I was not myself. And I had to really look at that and like, wow, I think it was before Michelle Obama said that she was a little bit depressed. But I was like, I have to reflect on this, and something is not right. And what do I need to do to sort of rally and take care of myself better during this? But I think about 4 months in, I really noticed that it was impacting my mental health. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we have a question. What do you guys think the long-term effects of the stress and social distancing will be?
My hunch, we are a remarkably resilient species. We have been able to bounce back from some really, really awful stuff over the centuries. And I think this is, again, all of the whammies combined makes this harder. But I think we're going to be able to bounce back from this in a lot of ways. My biggest fear, though, are the folks who are kind of being left behind. You know, the folks who have lost the jobs, and how are they going to be able to get back in? The families, whether they're heterosexual or any other kind of family, that one member has had to leave the workforce in order to be able to be home with kids, if kids are something that they're dealing with. And I think a lot of those kind of changes are going to be really hard to see people bounce back from. I think my hope is that they will find ways, you know, to get that connection, to get that sense of self, to get all of those things that, you know, we kind of count on society to provide for us, even if society isn't going to provide it. Now, my hope is also the fact that the politics have changed a little bit will lead to hopefully a little bit more help forthcoming, but I can't guarantee that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we know that stress on the body long term has some significant health consequences for your cardiovascular system, and well, basically every system of your body is greatly impacted by stress. So the sooner we can move through this, I think the better we will be. But people have to do their part for us to move through this. And I think, you know, that becomes difficult, because you're dependent on other people for your own well-being, which is a place that I'm not sure we always find ourselves, which has made this more interesting.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Missing friends that we saw all the time and can't now is stressful. Yes, very stressful. Not being able to hang out with your normal social group. Like I had a friend group that every Wednesday after choir practice, we would go get a glass of wine. And I mean, we haven't done that since March, right? And I haven't seen them in almost as much time. And that's doing the normal social things that we used to do. And Zoom is really not a replacement.
It's better than nothing. I mean, I'm glad people are doing it. You know, A+ for trying, but you're right. It's not the same thing.
Yes, it's very hard.
I was very much a extroverted, outgoing person, always doing things before this. And I mean, I've pretty much locked down. You know, I don't really go anywhere. If I do, it's to play golf. That's one of the things that I found that I like to do during this pandemic. And were it not for the pandemic, I would have never found golf, at least not to the degree that I have. But I play a lot by myself. And I was able to get outside with that. Now it's kind of bothering me a little bit because it's getting cold, and I'm not going to be able to play as much. So I'm a little worried about that. But just being able to be around people and see people, it's very different for me now that I get very anxious, and sometimes I panic when I'm around people, and I don't know how that's going to go after this is over. You know, in my head right now, I still think there's going to be a switch that's just going to, you know, I mean, this switch just kind of flipped on. So in my head, I keep telling myself it's just going to flip off when it's over. But I don't really know that. And so that makes me a little bit more anxious. You know, I mean, when this is over, and whatever over looks like, am I going to be able to be around people? Am I going to be able to breathe? Am I going to be able to hug my friends and things like that without panicking? And
it's going to feel weird whenever we do have the opportunity to do that again. I mean, somebody comes close to me and my immediate reaction now is back up, get up, and how will that change when this is over? So you brought up a good point, Heather, and I'd like to throw it out to the audience. How have people learned how to cope during this challenging times? I mean, I would venture a guess that everybody has been able to find at least some healthy ways to cope through this. It may not be what you were doing before, but like Heather took up golf. So are there things, people were bread making and doing things like that. So what has the audience been doing? And then I'll open up to the panel. What have y'all been doing to cope during this crazy time?
So
Somebody, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Somebody says that Heather is crazy good at golf now.
I'm a lot better than I was when I started. I have to say that. Yeah.
Well, Katherine, I'm like you. I'm a singer also. And so losing that choir connection was a big one. And, you know, this time of year, it's extra hard because this is a busy time of year for singers typically. And we've had Zoom meetings and, you know, we check in, we're trying to do virtual singing projects and that kind of thing, but sure is different. So I've just had to figure out a lot of things to do around the house. And, you know, I've been doing a lot of the cooking and baking, but the problem is when I cook and bake, I then eat the cooking and baking. And so that's led me to have to really focus on making sure I get exercise and yeah, just keeping everything in moderation, I think is kind of where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, balance. So I see some comments from the audience. Lots more time for stained glass. We know Athena's good with her stained glass. Excellent. Working from home, working more hours. So I saw a study recently that said the people who are working from home are working more hours than they were when they were at the office. So how do you find that balance of shutting down your workday and having a transition between your workday and your personal time? And what are you doing to transition that time? Are you going for a walk or what is it you're doing? Because there needs to be a clear transition between your work time and your home life. So I'm seeing you cook more now. That's something that I've definitely been doing because I haven't been eating out at all. So cooking has become a part of the entertainment. But now I'm kind of like tired of it. But somebody else has fired the lawn guy and started doing all their own yard work.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And doing stuff outside is always healthy for you. Walking downstairs. Do you ever have to walk up the stairs?
I think that's her transition from work to after work.
Oh, okay.
That's the transition. Okay. Okay. Great.
Yeah, I did find in the beginning I was just kind of working through a little longer. Work was kind of strange because I had actually started mostly working from home about a year before all this started. Which that was also an adjustment because then I wasn't seeing people like I was before. So then for me to be around people, that took more in the evening and stuff. But then kind of when all this got going, I don't know, it was a little weird. Work just kind of got a little more something. So I switched it up. I take my shower at the end of the day now instead of the beginning of the day. And that's kind of my transition. Unless I'm going to play golf, and then I take my shower a little earlier so that I can get out there before it gets dark. But yeah, I have to say that I do recommend that anyone who hasn't found something to do, try to find something. You know, reading. I don't know, write your memoirs. You know, I mean, something. Just something like, you know, write down stories about your grandparents that you remember, you know, anything. Just find something that makes you smile and gives you a little bit of peace in your brain. You know, I mean, play Candy Crush, you know, become the best Candy Crusher there is. You know, just something, because at the point that I did find something, I I don't know. Things changed a little bit. Things got a little bit better. My anxiety is still bad. I've still had panic attacks since then, but it's at least something that I'm learning about golf. I'm reading about golf. So it's not just when I'm on the golf course. It's also something that keeps my brain active when I'm home too. So I do think it's very important to find something.
And I think a practice like that is really, really important, whether it's a sport, whether it's doing yoga or Tai Chi at the house, with a DVD or with one of the online offerings, any of those kinds of things I think are huge. And that's a way of sort of investing in ourselves and saying, my mental health and my physical health matter, and I'm going to put some energy into it.
Mm-hmm. And I think for me, one important thing that I learned is that I need to turn off the news. And I need to watch something that makes me laugh or that makes me feel good during this time. And that the news works on the same pleasure center of the brain that the drugs do. So I've been making a conscious effort, I watched all of Parks and Rec, and what can you watch that gives you joy and makes you laugh? I think
Schitt's Creek over here. Yeah,
Schitt's Creek is great. Yeah.
When things get so heavy, we have to find a way to sort of lighten it. And I adopted a new cat, which you may hear meow. So anything else? Laughter. The audience said laughter. Oh, somebody found Netflix. Yes, between Netflix and Disney Plus and Amazon Prime and all those things, you can certainly find plenty to entertain yourself on the TV. But doing things beyond that, right, is also important, that you're not spending 8 hours a day in front of the TV.
Right.
Yeah, and then somebody said, I'm sure it's hard on couples being together more than normal.
Yep. Particularly when both
maybe
halves
that
of
one
the
was
couple.
Towards me a little bit. Well, my wife and I'm extroverted, she's introverted. So the way I recharge my battery is being around people. The way she recharges her battery is having some alone time. So especially in the very beginning of this, it was really difficult, before I really realized that I was having the anxiety issues and things like that. And even then too, because that is how my battery recharges, is being around people. And she needs some calm, quiet time. So, when she is going to work. So that's draining for her, being around people at work. And then coming home to me, who hasn't been around anyone. And I want to talk, and I want to, I haven't really had a day. I've been sitting here at my computer working, so nothing major has happened. And she needs quiet time. So having a lot of together time has been an adjustment. But in the end, I think we found good things about it. And that's what there are irritating things, and I know I irritate her. But you kind of have to find your way around the irritating things and just focus on the things that are good and that you're learning and that you're growing together, and make a conscious effort to not be too irritating and not let yourself get too irritated.
And if it's got to the point where it's beyond that, and unfortunately we're seeing increased rates of domestic violence, and we know that LGBTQ families have domestic violence just like any other ones do, please get yourself someplace safe. Get out, call somebody, talk to them. Again, most of us fortunately are not dealing with that, and that's wonderful. But if you are, you're not alone. Please reach out. Please reach out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think for me and my partner, we're noticing that we're both significantly stressed, and that we're kind of sniping at each other and taking it out on each other, and not recognizing it for what it is. And having to take a step back from that and say, you know what, we're both really stressed and we can't take this out on each other. We have to make it through this together. But I think that's probably pretty common when people are both under significant pressure during this time.
Yep. My husband and I are in the same situation as Heather in terms of I'm the big extrovert, big introvert, and I go off to work every day, and he stays here and is the big extrovert. So that exact same challenge, we ended up seeking out some couples therapy and talking with somebody. And I tell you what, she is a busy woman, because right about now, a whole lot of people are in that kind of stressful situation. So don't let yourself just stew in it. Reach out, get some assistance.
Yeah. So that's a good segue for me to mention. We do have 2 mental health agencies in Salisbury that have been Pride sponsors for several years in the past. So I wanted to mention them. NSC Behavioral Concepts has been a Pride sponsor. Ultraviolet Mental Health has also been a Pride sponsor. If you're a veteran, of course, the VA provides mental health services and also goes to Prides in the local area. So I just want to say it again, NSC Behavioral Concepts or Ultraviolet Mental Health are the ones that have been Pride sponsors for Salisbury Pride. So if you're looking for professional help and looking for LGBTQ friendly professional help, those are 2 local groups that could certainly assist. And I think they're doing a lot of virtual things right now. But there's some advantages to virtual, that you don't have to go into an office and that you can see a therapist at your convenience in the comfort of your own home. So I think sometimes just admitting that you might need to reach out and get some help. And there's nothing wrong with that. They recommend all therapists have therapists. And, a lot of people, especially during this time, you have some therapy for a few sessions and go back for some tune-ups periodically. And a lot of times... Go ahead.
Some of us are of an age where we may be afraid that reaching out to a mental health person, they're going to say that our being LGBTQ is the problem. And please don't feel that that's what you're going to get at this point. There's a whole lot of us out in the mental health world who know better than that, who know how to help folks culturally sensitive. So please don't let that stop you.
Yes. And if you do run into somebody who doesn't seem sensitive to your needs, look for somebody else.
Yep,
there are plenty. Yeah, fire them. There are plenty of mental health clinicians out there that will be sensitive to the needs of the LGBTQ plus community and be glad to work with them. So don't hesitate to reach out for professional help if you feel like you're at a point where you need that, or don't wait until you feel like you're at a point where you need that. Just go ahead and start building that connection with somebody in the mental health community so that you have them for assistance.
Yeah.
So somebody wants to know if I recommend adopting cats as a stress reliever. Heather's shaking her head, but I am a huge proponent of pet therapy. And I think that animals always help when you're in a situation of isolation, which some of us find ourselves in. And that unconditional love piece that you get from animals can be very helpful during times like this.
That is true. I just like dogs.
Well, whatever animal you want to adopt. But some of the folks on here know that I'm a cat person. So somebody else also says that a lot of companies have really stepped up to support mental health this year. So check your company policies to see if you can get some mental health assistance. A lot of companies have employee assistance programs as well, where you could get help. And a lot of insurance plans cover it.
Yep.
So,
and one of the benefits, sometimes people worry that the doing teletherapy is going to be weird. In fact, a lot of people find once they're about halfway through the first session, it actually is pretty darn normal. Doesn't feel that weird. And one of the big benefits of it is you used to have to leave work, drive over to my office, do an hour session with me, drive back to work. You're taking 2.5, 3 hours off of work at that point. Now you do it over lunch. you know, because you can do it while just walk out to your car, do it on your phone, go back in, you're set. So really the barriers are lower now.
Yeah.
The barriers are lower.
Yeah, and I see a comment from the audience that one additional stressor for 2020 has been the social justice issues and it being hard to be separate, and also being able to show your solidarity and support.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people have really struggled with that. They've wanted to participate in protests and things like that, but haven't felt safe doing so, and really torn. I know I was like that. I was really torn. I was like, this is not a good idea for me to go participate in this, but I also don't want to look back on this and say that I sat it out. And it was really a hard decision. And, you know, you can't fault anybody for making a different decision from that. But I know a lot of people really struggled with how can I participate in this movement and still stay safe.
Yeah. And I think the fact that so many people came out to vote was an offshoot of that. You know, all the people who were sitting at home, sitting on their hands going, man, I wish I could be out there doing something. That was the moment that they took it and said, okay, I'm going to make sure, come hell or high water, does not matter, I am going to find a way to vote. And I think that was wonderful. Some of them didn't vote the way I wish they would have, but that's okay. At least they participated, you know?
Yes.
And so, yeah, find that way to be able to participate. Are you writing to your Congress people? Are you calling your local, you know, your local senator's office? Make sure there's a way your voice is heard.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I see from the audience one person, I think this is probably a coping mechanism, that the mask, being able to make unique and varied masks, to be able to express yourself right on your face, right? And it's been really interesting to see what people have done with that and been really creative with the mask. We keep wearing them after all this is over. So we have our own little signature on our faces. So I just wanted to sort of transition into coping tips for this holiday season, for this pandemic, for mental health in general. What are things people plan to do to cope, or what are some of our ideas to help people cope during this difficult time? And the audience, feel free to chime in as well if you have ideas. So one thing, I think Heather mentioned it, and I think it's important, about her golf, spending time outside. So spending time outside is important even when it's cold. Getting that sunshine, that vitamin D, that helps you feel better. So even if you have to bundle up, making sure that you're going outside.
Yeah. Even if you're working from home, take that lunch hour. Get outside, just walk around for a few minutes, get that vitamin D, get some sun. It's going to help you sleep better. A little bit of exercise is going to help to get some of those stress hormones out. It's just a win-win-win all the way around. And it's one of the safest places you can be, really, if you're not being around people. You know, if you're just walking around outside, that is just as safe as sitting in your house. So.
And I think it's helpful sometimes if we sort of get stuck in a place to reflect on what we're grateful for. And each day, write down 3 things that we're grateful for from that day. Because it's easy in stressful times like this to sort of focus on what's not going well and what's negative. So really thinking about, what are we grateful for despite all of this?
Yeah. That's huge. I think finding, and Heather, I think you mentioned this too, finding a way to be creative, finding a way to express something. If you're writing, that's wonderful. If you're, I half jokingly call myself an Appalachian grandmother trapped in a gay bear's body. You know, I am spinning, I am knitting, I am crocheting, I am weaving, I am cooking, I am canning, because those are the ways that I kind of express my love and express what's inside of me. And so that's been really important. And maybe that's something I do on my own and then I send to somebody so that way there's a little bit of distance. Or maybe, maybe you start reaching out to your friends and loved ones and just not to complain about anything, just to call and say, hey, I was thinking about you and just wanted to let you know. And that's going to make both of y'all feel better. And you're both going to get a nice oxytocin little hit up in your brain, which is precisely those same things that the pet and all those other kinds of things do for us. So yeah, let's hack our neurology a little bit to help us.
Yeah. And one of the audience members says reconnecting with distant family through holiday cards, phone calls, emails. I think a lot of people have had the opportunity to do that with people that, we always say, you let those things get away from you over time. And, reconnecting now when you don't have a whole lot else to do. Can be really good. Duo has saved somebody. So Duo is one of those video, like FaceTime. Only you can
But
do
you can
it.
do it between Android and Apple devices. They can talk to each other.
So connecting over Duo. Somebody else says sending a simple hello text, letting people know that you're thinking about them. That can go a long way.
Absolutely enormous. A lot of people are feeling isolated right now. So the people that you're in touch with regularly, they're probably okay. But if somebody crosses your mind and you think, I haven't heard anything from them in a while, that's the person to shoot a text to, because it may be that everybody else has had that same thought and hasn't reached out. So we don't need anybody feeling isolated right now.
Yeah. Right. So when in doubt, do it.
Do it.
Yeah, do it. Yeah. Don't hesitate. Just do it.
Don't worry that you don't have anything interesting to say, or that, you don't have some brilliant thing to, point at. Don't worry about it. Just a howdy, thinking about you, hope you're doing okay, can just absolutely open that door.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's when somebody in the audience was sick and everyone checking on them meant so much. Yeah. So reaching out and caring for other people can go a long way, because we want that when we're sick. Mm-hmm. So reaching out and making sure other people know that they're cared about.
Yeah.
I think it's always important to take care of our basic needs. And I think a lot of times, sometimes we overlook this, but especially folks who are working from home and don't necessarily need to leave the house, making sure that you're still taking a shower every day, making sure that you're still eating on a regular schedule every day. Like you said, take that time for a lunch break. But making sure that you're actually eating a healthy meal on regular times to take care of yourself. Making sure that you're doing your grooming, whatever.
Shave your legs every once in a while.
Shave your legs every now and again. Put on your work pants every now and again and make sure they still fit, right? I think occasionally dress up for the Zoom call. Put on real clothes for the Zoom call. Do your hair, do your makeup for the Zoom call, because you'll notice a difference about how you feel if you get ready for life like you used to. We had a choir Zoom call, and one of our choir members dressed up in this evening gown one night and told us she'd had it for like 40 years and told us this story about this evening gown she was on. And we had so much fun because she just dressed up, So I know we're at home, but make it fun. The wife giving you a haircut. So cut each other's hair. Would you recommend that, Heather?
The end result, yes. And really the process was a lot of laughter. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it. Just go slowly and be careful. Is what I would recommend on the whole haircuts. And don't try to give a new style. Just try to go along with something simple. Cut along the lines.
Yep. Yeah. Just because you watched a couple of YouTube videos does not make you an expert.
No, because holding those clippers is a lot different than they do it in the salon when they're trying to get the edges and around the ears and things like that. It's a lot different when you're not a professional. So go slowly. Be careful.
It's scary. And
yeah. They bleed.
I think things like singing I don't, if you turn up your music in your house and just sing along to it, that can change the way you feel. And dancing, a lot of times I say to my clients, have you ever seen an angry man dance? If he started out angry, he wasn't angry by the time he finished dancing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, people, if you're feeling isolated, just dance around your place, and, things like that can change the way you're feeling.
Yep.
Yeah, and just laughing. I mean, yeah, like we were saying earlier, Schitt's Creek and stuff like that. There are funny shows out there. I mean, even if you're not doing something that can make you laugh, watch something that can make you laugh. I mean, there's YouTube videos that are funny. There's all kinds of. We have access to so much now that. But one thing that I have found is that laughing, just when I get to those points where I'm really anxious or I'm really nervous, then I try to laugh about something. I try to find something funny about anything at that point, because it just kind of can make you feel a little bit better, a little lighter, get you through that moment.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think also being proactive about things you need to do. I think it gets to be an easy habit to sort of sit around and say, oh, I can do that later, or I don't feel like doing that now. But taking it on and being proactive and accomplishing small goals, no matter how small, can help us feel like we've accomplished something during our stay at home.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yep.
And I think exercising your right to say no. For me, that's something that I have to talk myself into doing, right? But it's okay to set boundaries, and it's okay to protect your own mental health. And it's okay to say no if you're feeling overwhelmed or exhausted, or you just can't handle one more Zoom call. It's okay to have limits to protect yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And this is a time of year when a lot of people may have expectations about you. And that's a great time to practice some of these. No, sorry, I'm not up to that this year. Or no, I don't feel safe with that this year. So nope, maybe next year. So
yeah, being your own advocate for what you need during this time. I think that's important.
Yeah.
I also think this may be the substance abuse side of me, but limiting or eliminating your substance use.
Yep.
And there have been studies during this pandemic that people are using more substances during this.
Yep.
And overall, that's going to impact us more harshly than it is going to help us.
Yep. Yep. And I would say lots of addictive behaviors are really bad right about now. So if you notice that after, spending 2 or 3 days at home, being perfect about COVID, suddenly you find yourself on Grindr and going out, maybe you want to be a watch on that, right? Maybe that's not helping you in the long run, but it's hard to figure out, what am I going to do instead? How am I going to find a way to connect to people? How am I going to deal with my stress? And I think that's where, Katherine, you were dead on with the be proactive about it. Figure out something before it gets to that point. Figure out what you're going to do before you get to the point that you notice you've just cracked open the new bottle of whiskey or something. Let's have a plan in advance.
Yeah. Yeah. And earlier we mentioned read a book. That's one of my personal favorites, is reading, because you can escape from the real world into whatever world you want it to be. So I think reading, if you're home alone and there's nothing else you want to do, I think reading can be a great outlet for folks.
Yeah. Give in to some of your guilty pleasures. My mother-in-law lives with us sometimes, and whenever she's here, she watches Westerns all day long. There's a whole channel that's nothing but Westerns, and they make her happy as can be. So I'm like, go for it. Who cares? Watch 10 of them. That's a good day. No big deal. So.
Yeah, and people love those Hallmark movies. So 'tis the season for the
And
Hallmark
there's a
movie.
gay one now.
Right.
There's finally a gay one. We're very excited. I hear it's
Yeah.
just as schmaltzy and terrible as all the rest of them. So good for us.
Yeah.
It's right. That's a win.
Nice.
Yeah. But I think for me, the most important thing is really admitting that you're not okay. Admitting that you're struggling. Telling your close people that you're having some issues, and sometimes just talking it out can help. But sometimes, we need a little more help, and sometimes our loved ones have to sort of push us in that direction. But admitting you're not okay.
Yeah. I do have to say that my loved ones are the ones who pushed me to get some help. I don't think I realized how bad I was. But I'm lucky. My wife is incredible. And I also have a bunch of good friends that are, they all kind of made me realize that, yeah, maybe I was a little handling it, I don't know, not handling it as well as I could have been. And so they're the ones who kind of convinced me that to see it, how, I'm not really sure exactly how to say this, but they helped me see how I was, how I still am sometimes. And because I don't always see it, I don't always recognize when I'm anxious or when maybe I'm having a little bit of a panic. But they kind of see it. And the times when I do lock down more and don't go anywhere for a longer period of time, they generally find a way to point that out in a way.
Yeah, sometimes we're not handling things as well as we think we are, and we need our loved ones to sort of ground us again, and sort of, when you trust somebody, hey, what's going on here? Or was that how it went, Heather?
Yeah, they pointed out that I really probably didn't need to be keeping my own spreadsheets on coronavirus stats, because I was doing that, and the data I couldn't see the data the way I needed to see it. And so I started keeping my own stats, and I was updating my spreadsheets every day and updating my graphs and charts. And I thought that was giving me some sort of peace. But it wasn't. I mean, I was just obsessing over COVID. And so, seeing that and seeing that the spreadsheets were a little much, and seeing that I needed to divert some attention elsewhere, I'm really thankful that they recognized that in me and kind of, gave me a little push to make a phone call to get some help.
Yeah. It sounds like somebody in the audience said giving more grace. It sounds like they gave you some grace in their push. And I think that, that's something that's important, is everybody is struggling. So giving people a little more grace and a little more benefit of the doubt. That we never know what somebody else is struggling with. We never know somebody else's internal struggles. So giving folks grace, because we're all stressed out. We're all at our limit. And I think that's important. And somebody else in the audience also said their outdoor activities have been their outlet. So biking, hiking, kayaking, golfing. They didn't say golfing, but golfing. Yeah, and friends are so important. One of our audience, friends are so important. Support and understanding is so important. Continuing to nurture those relationships that are meaningful to us.
Yeah. If you have a faith community, making sure that you stay in touch with them. If you've been interested in faith communities, but maybe had a bad experience earlier, now's a great time to check out who are some of the ones who are sponsors of Salisbury Pride, because they're probably going to welcome you with open arms and a kind of loving embrace that you need right at the moment. So now may not be a bad time. You can on Sundays or Saturdays or whatever day happens to be your holy day, attend a couple of services and get a feeling for some places if that's something you're interested in. Some of us have no interest in that. Great. Maybe we get involved with a biking group or something, or a hiking group that can be done outside, socially distanced, but keeps us engaged with some people.
Yeah. Any other tips y'all can think of for people moving through this holiday pandemic season from the audience or from our panel?
I guess one thing I want to make sure I throw out, is now, unfortunately, is a time when a higher than average percentage of people kill themselves. In the midst of all of the stress that we're under, a higher than average proportion. And then in the LGBTQ community, even higher percentage. So please, 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 the number is crawling across the bottom right now. Call that number. If it's an emergency, call 911. But if you can, recognize it weeks before you get there. Recognize, hey, I'm having some thoughts that I don't really recognize as how I usually think about things, and reach out to somebody so we can stop people from becoming statistics. We don't need any more statistics right now.
Absolutely.
What were you going to say, Heather?
I was just going to say, like, with the holidays coming up and things like that, a lot of families are choosing not to get together. Some families are choosing to get together.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a part of a family who is choosing to get together, but you're not comfortable getting together, then it's hard to say no, because for a lot of reasons. But you have to know your own limits, and you have to know what you're comfortable with. And so spend some extra time thinking about it. Don't jump into something that you're not comfortable with either way. And I don't know. I mean, just think about it that even if your family's getting together and you don't feel comfortable with that, that's okay. It's okay. Like Katherine was saying earlier, it's okay to say no. It's hard, but it's okay.
Yeah.
And don't let that add to whatever you're feeling.
Yeah. It's okay to protect yourself. It's okay to advocate for yourself. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say what you need. So I also see that decorating, people are suggesting decorating. Some people haven't decorated in years. But I know this year a lot of people put up Christmas decorations way earlier than usual, and that makes people feel better. So decorate, or whatever it is that you need to do. If holiday traditions that you still enjoy, you can still do. You can still bake cookies and do these things that maybe were traditions, even if you can't get together with your family. And reaching out to our LGBTQIA youth that may be struggling right now can be very important. Youth feel like their world has been turned upside down with school, and it really has. And that stage in your life, the world revolves around your school and your friends and your sports, and it's hard for teenagers to see beyond that, right? So it may to us feel like some of it's irrational, but for them, that's their world. Yeah. So, and recognizing that you're not alone. Nobody out there is alone in this. And this is why this is so important to talk about, because we all struggle in our own ways. We're all coping in our own ways, but we're all stressed out. Yeah. Whether we see it or not, we are. And so just having the conversation. And again, I want to mention our local Pride sponsors. If you want to seek help for yourself, NSC Behavioral Concepts and Ultraviolet Mental Health have both been Pride sponsors. So don't hesitate to get help if you want it.
The one other population that I'll point out, you mentioned youth, and they're incredibly important, but think about our elders too. LGBTQ elders, unfortunately, can kind of feel like they fall off the face of the map. So if you know somebody, just reach out to them.
Yeah.
Touch base.
And a lot of them can't have that family interaction if they're, in a retirement community or nursing home that they're used to. It's just particularly hard for them.
Yeah.
So as we get ready to wrap up, are there any final comments y'all would like to make?
I guess I'd say let the joy happen too. This is a time of year when little spontaneous blurps of joy happen. And what a horrible word. But yeah, let those blurps of joy just blurp all over you. I mean, this is a wonderful time. But for those who are show queens, you know, We Need a Little Christmas from Maine, that can be your theme song right about now. So absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're not a show queen, ask your local show queen, they'll explain. So
I was just going to try something new, try something different. You know, I'd played golf a couple of times before, but I had no idea, and it was okay, you know, but I had no idea that I would love it like I do. So, you know, try something different, kind of branch out a little bit. You might find something that you're going to love forever. That might be something really good that comes out of this, or something that you can at least hold on to while we're getting through this.
Yeah, or you can at least say, in 2020 during the pandemic, I tried this.
Exactly. Exactly. I learned how to crochet, you know, or whatever it may be. It'd be fun to come out of this learning a new skill, knowing something that you didn't know before.
Yep.
But also, don't beat yourself up if you decide not to bake bread with everybody else.
Yep.
Hey, to each their own, right? You do what you want to do. Take care of yourself.
Absolutely.
Or if your bread's no good, don't beat yourself up. You know,
Absolutely.
I mean, if you decide you want to crochet and your sweater ends up, you know, fitting a chihuahua, that's fine. You know, it's fine. Just do things, try things, fail, you know, learn something and try something else.
So I think it's important to say that grace that we talked about earlier extends to ourselves as well. So treat yourself with grace and with the love that you would treat somebody else with. We tend to be harder on ourselves than other people are on us. So give that same kindness that you would show someone else to yourself this holiday season.
Absolutely.
And as we close up, I just want to mention again that our virtual Salisbury Pride events are sponsored by Food Line. And don't forget NSC Behavioral Concepts and Ultraviolet Mental Health if you need those services, and 1-800-273-TALK, which is the crisis hotline. You may know someone who needs that as well, so it doesn't hurt to jot it down and have that handy. But I'd like to thank our participants tonight, Dr. Hall and Heather. I think this has been a necessary conversation and an excellent conversation.
Yeah,
so thank you both
for hosting us.
Absolutely. And thank you to all of our audience participation. It was made even better by your participation. So thank you so much. And everybody have a great night and happy holidays.
Yep, happy holidays.